Let's get stuck in with the France 24 debate. Tonight we discuss Syria, which has entered a new phase of the 9-month-old uprising. After failing to put down the anti-government protests with brute force, and in the face of growing international isolation, the regime of Bashar al-Assad has decided to bow to foreign pressure and allow a team of observers into the country. Their goal, find out whether or not Damascus is respecting its promise to end violence and pull its army out of residential areas. The observers are now into the second day of their mission, and so far, the controversial head of the mission, after visiting one of the worst affected cities, Homs, where hundreds of people have died, said that he had seen, quote-unquote, nothing frightening. So does the Arab League have what it takes to carry out this mission? Is this a farce, or is it too early to judge the efforts of the observers? My guests to answer these questions this evening are Melissa Bell, France 24 International Affairs Editor. Thank you very much for joining us on set, Melissa. We also have with us by satellite link from Cairo, Haitham Maleh, Syrian human rights activist. Haitham, will be very interested to get your views in just a few moments. Also joining us by internet connection from Norway, the town of Alvdal, is Ole Solvang. Ole, you're an emergencies researcher for Human Rights Watch, and you have worked on a report published by Human Rights Watch about Syria that was published just 2 weeks ago. I also have to my left France 24's very own Julien Pain, who heads up our France 24 Observers Unit. So you deal with amateur footage every day. You verify whether or not it's true, and you help us put that on air, and you put it on the internet as well. Before we turn to you, Julien, we want to look at a video that was shot yesterday. It is an amateur video, and at this stage we must remind you that for the last 9 months or so, most journalistic outlets, including ourselves, have been depending mostly on amateur footage to know what is going on inside Syria. It is very difficult to verify this footage. This is a video that was shot yesterday in the city of Homs, where the head of the observation mission, Sudanese General Mustafa al-Dabi, spoke with residents of the city of Homs.
انتم بجيتكم لهون على حي باب عمر، انتم قرأتوا مجزرة جديدة، الحي صار له 5 ايام معرض للاجتياح، الان النظام خبى الدبابات لانكم موجودين، خبى الدبابات، انتم شايفين بعينكم، انتم بجيتكم لهون، انتم بجيتكم لهون، يعني عم تحموا الناس متفائلة فيكم خير، بنتمنى تكونوا قد
عندكم الشباب، بدنا المعتقلين يا اخي، بدنا المعتقلين، بدي اياهم كلهم، امبارح 6 شباب،
الله محيي الجيش الحر، الله محيي الجيش الحر، الله محيي الجيش الحر، الله محيي الجيش الحر.
All right, we see in this video just how much hope the arrival of the observers had generated. Residents of Homs begging General al-Dabi to come into their area. This was the area of Bab Amra, to see for himself, to witness what had gone on. And since then, observers and Human Rights Watch and human rights groups have criticized the Arab League mission for saying that they are failing to see what's really going on the ground. Julien, you have a couple of videos that I think will enlighten us. What do you have for us right now?
Well, I'll try to see what the observers of the Arab League actually saw and what they couldn't see. So yesterday, there's this video you can see now. They went to Bab Amr, which is one of the places that has been really targeted by the army. So it was important for them to go. And they even saw stains of blood on the ground. You can see that here. The problem is that these stains of blood are 2 days old, because nothing was happening that day in Bab Amr. Because on the same day, the real protest...
And what we see on that video is the general being shown around Bab Amr and being shown the bloodstains.
Yeah, we know he talked to victims of the repression, and he saw the stains of blood. We know that. But then at the same time, the very same day, the protests were not in Bab Amr. They were in another area, which is called Khaldiya. And that's where the people were actually expecting him. They were expecting the observers to show up, and they never showed up.
And this is the protest right here in Khaldiya.
That's the protest we can see now. And you can't see the repression in that video, but 8 people died in Homs that day. And the observers of the Arab League, they didn't see that. They were in Bab Amr in another area. But let's now take a look at...
So 8 people died in the very city where the head of the Arab League observation mission had been sent that day, or rather had decided to go that day, and yet he comes back from his mission saying he saw nothing frightening. These videos show us that he actually did not see, did not witness, did not go to this protest where thousands upon thousands of people gathered.
But I have another video which is even more important, because today there was also a protest in Khaldia. And again, they didn't go to that protest in Khaldia. They went back to Bab Amr, the same area. But that time, they were not followed. I mean, my sources there told me that they were not followed by security forces, that they could talk freely to people. And on that video, we can see that they're in a mosque with inhabitants of that area, Bab Amr, and the people, they are showing them the victims, the bodies.
Are those bodies we see on the ground?
Yes, they show the bodies of kids,
Of children.
of children with bullet holes. So you can see, I mean, we know now that the Arab League observers, they saw victims of the repression. People on the ground told me that they also saw tanks, because tanks are supposed to have left the city, and that was one of the important points of the deal with the Arab League. They should withdraw all army forces from the city.
From residential
and
areas,
my
that's
sources
correct.
told me that they saw that too. So they saw the victims, they saw the tanks. So the question is not really, did they actually see the repression? The question is, will they dare to say what they saw?
Because this video comes on the back, as we were saying, just a few hours after Mr. Al-Dabi had said that he'd seen nothing frightening. Julien, just briefly, tell us how you collect this data. As I explained earlier, it's difficult to get information, reliable information, coming from Syria.
Yeah, very few journalists managed to get in. I mean, we know that. A few of them managed to go to Homs, for example, and the accounts we have from them is exactly the accounts I'm publishing every day. Because I'm in contact every day via Twitter, via Facebook, via Skype, which is a very important tool to communicate with Syria now. And what I do is that I go to the forums, because they have chat rooms which are closed, not open chat rooms where only journalists and activists can gather, and they exchange information. And you can actually see the repression going on like minute after minute. And people are discussing that, they're exchanging videos. And you can even talk to people saying, well, you're in Homs, I have this video that shows the repression, can you tell me, is that in that city? Was it today? Was it yesterday? What kind of weapons they used? So it's a fascinating way of working with Syria.
And when the France 24 observers, and I have to say they have nothing to do with the Arab League observers, two totally separate things. When your observers unit decides to post something on the internet, when we use it on the television to broadcast it, these are sources that you have vetted and cross-checked.
Yeah, it can be whether that, our own sources sent us the video, which is the best way, of course. We have reliable sources. When they send me a video, I trust them, because I've been working with them for 6-8 months. And otherwise, if I get a video from someone I don't know, then I have to work on checking the video. It takes time. It takes, you don't have scoops. It takes time to check these videos. But you can sometimes, if I can give you just one example, you can, you show the video to someone from the ground who lives in Homs, and you show him the streets. For you, all the streets of Homs look the same. But for him, he's going to tell you, well, that's actually the shop I'm going every day, so I know that shop, and I know that it looks like that. It's definitely in that street in Homs. And he'll tell you then, yeah, and the slogans that you can hear in that video, they're the slogans of today. These are not slogans that you could hear 2 days before. That's the kind of work I'm doing on the videos.
And by cross-checking your sources and your data, you've been able to bring us reliable footage, such as the footage that we just saw, which shows that today in Homs, the head of the Arab League observation mission was shown by residents of the area bodies, presumably bodies of victims of the repression.
Then again, it's difficult to say, because the bodies could be bodies killed a month before, and that's probably what the Syrian authorities will tell them. Well, these are not bodies. We didn't kill these people. They're terrorists. Because it's always the same answer from the authorities. So, but if you're a neutral and honest observer, I think that you have to agree that that's not random repression. They repress actually activists and people demonstrating.
Let's speak to one of those activists. Haitham Maleh, you're in Cairo, taking part in this debate for us. You're a Syrian human rights activist. What is your reaction to the findings of the Arab League observation mission so far?
First of all, I want to say the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva created before two kind of people and they wrote 2 reports for the Security Council, more than 40 pages. They wrote about the crime against humanity in Syria, against everything, and the Syrian government refused to let them go in Syria to investigate, to see what happened. Now this group came by Arab League to Syria, but we have more than 100 hot points in Syria. They must be in immediately in one time. They must follow everything. But we have 2 points now. The first point, that what happened in Syria is a kind of war against humanity, against the civilian. And the second is a crime against humanity. And in this case, this group, it means nothing.
Haitham, that's the question I'm asking you, Haitham. Why does this group mean nothing? Because you're purporting that there are crimes against humanity. They are on the ground to observe that, to find out exactly what's going on. How are they doing so far?
Okay. They have only to picture, to see what happened, and then they must write a report about what they see or what they saw. But they have no right to make media to speak, to say this is good or not good, quiet or not quiet. This is out of their right. In the same meaning, these groups come from United Arab League. They will not be alone. In Homs, they will be with a major general from security service. We see on the TV how he pulled a man, tried to speak to this Sudanian, the chief of the
Major
group.
El-Dabi,
So
General El-Dabi.
They will not let them alone. They will not let them alone to do their job.
Well, there
So
was an
for this,
instance of that today, Haitham, when the observers tried to go back to the neighborhood of Baba Amra, and they had the government escort that you're referring to. The residents did not want to allow them inside the neighborhood with the escort, so they returned shortly afterwards without their escort. Now, I want to ask a question now to Ole Solvang in Norway. Ole, you're a researcher for Human Rights Watch. In your assessment, how is the Arab League observers team doing? Because other organizations, other human rights organizations have said that they don't have a history of fact-finding missions. They're not really equipped to do this.
Right. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that it is extremely difficult to conduct the kind of investigation that is needed in Syria, and I think it is a little bit too early to pass judgment on the Arab League and their fact-finding mission just yet. We have to remember they have just pretty much just landed in Syria. They've just started working, and it is difficult. I think our concern is also connected to whether it is at all possible to conduct that kind of investigation in Syria at this point under these authorities. Human Rights Watch has conducted investigations in Syria about what's going on in Syria for more than 9 months now, and it is difficult. We have managed to get teams inside Syria, but we also have had to conduct a lot of the interviews outside Syria. And we know that the Syrian government will try to manipulate this delegation, this fact-finding mission. So there are real concerns, whether it would be at all possible. Nonetheless, I think it is very important that these observers are on the ground. I think we should give them a little bit more time to establish the facts and present more substantive findings. But I think it is also extremely important for this observer mission that they are quite honest about whether or not they're able to operate freely. Because this is one of our concerns, and if they're not able to operate freely, if they feel that
so far they've said that everything has happened well. I think good was the term used by the head of the mission to describe how his first day went. He said it went well.
Well, again, I think it is very early days, and I think you know, those are the kinds of statements that, you know, you might expect in the early days to sort of encourage cooperation with the authorities. So let's wait and see a little bit. But as I said, as I want to underline, it is extremely important that the Arab League and, you know, the head of the mission is very, very clear about to what extent they are being obstructed in their further work there. You know, another concern that we do have is the whole manipulation of the situation, and we are concerned, for example, that hundreds of detainees were transferred out of their prisons, the detention centers, and that they might have been deliberately kept from the observer mission.
Melissa Bell, why would Syria allow in Arab League observers if they're not going to let them observe?
I think in a sense they had no choice, but what's interesting is that this is the most closely observed set of observers probably ever, and the point is, as Julien was saying, we're watching so closely what they're doing. It's being documented so closely by the sort of activists that have been allowing the rest of the world to see what was happening in Syria, that we're going to watch every step of the way. And as the previous contributor was just saying, in fact, what else could he say today? And if you look more closely at his comments, all the general said was that he'd seen nothing worrying, but it warranted further investigation. A team of 20 people was staying behind in Homs, even as he and the rest of the team were moving on to the other areas that they want to see. And we're talking about Hama, we're talking about Idlib province, places where things have happened. And he said, remember, that this is just the first day, more people are going to stay on. So you get a sense that they do want to do the business. The rest of the world is watching them do the business. We have organizations like Human Rights Watch publishing reports explaining the dangers of what seems to be going on, the concerns that they have about prisoners who appear to have been, and again, these things are collated with the help of people on the ground who send in reports, that people have been moved to military installations to get them out of the prisons in time for the observers' mission. All this will contribute to giving us a far greater picture of what's going on in Syria than simply what the head of the mission says on the first day. In the end, there will be a report, and almost certainly, when you look at the plan, it is so strict. I mean, it requires so many things to happen for the Arab League to be satisfied. All armed forces to be withdrawn, all prisoners released, and not just monitors allowed in, but the press. If any of these things don't happen, the Arab League will be forced by the criteria of its own plan, to say that Damascus has simply not respected it. And then it will be able to move on to the next step. In a sense, this is part of a process that will lead maybe to a return to the United Nations with the backing of the Arab League, which would unblock something that so far has remained steadfastly blocked.
The Arab League has threatened, actually, to push this issue along to the United Nations Security Council, and that is something that we'll be discussing in the second part of our debate. So we're going to have a break right now. Join us after the news flash. Bye-bye.